contract documents. So we said that the architects and engineers put together contract documents, and that is the word being contract as an agreement. We form the project manual, which is the primary document used for bid. This little snip here is I pulled from one of the ebooks that I put out there, is why it's a less bullet point like. So I'll leave that for you to read, but the idea being that there are specifications and drawings, and this makes up the what we are trying to do is issue as a deliverable. And for instance, you might have drawings for power and lighting or telecommunications, or and then specifications. So you have a spec for each thing you need. So if you need devices like receptacles, there'd be a specification for that. Lights, grounding and bonding. There's examples listed here, but each one of the specs is in a format as published by the Construction Standards Institute, CSI, which is most predominant, I believe, in North America. And they have a format that's 3 parts. So when you open that narrative like Word document, it would be the or PDF if it was received in a project, the standards that the product's work result is what is the necessary term. So you would say a specification section is intended to describe a work result. So the work result requires certain standards and even submittals to be given back to the design team to confirm that the what the contractor is going to buy and install meets the intent, or otherwise what they put out in the contractor bid and told the owner they were going to install. And so those things are described in part 1, and part 2 is normally the products. So you might have a generator in there, and then the accessories, or an uninterruptible power supply, or there could be a photovoltaic, a PV system specification. So this would be listed in part 2, and in part 3 would be installation and testing. I left this as some snip that I had from the notes from the last session, and you could see here there's the divisions. So this is how it's broken out. It used to be previously, there's an earlier format, CSI format, they shifted. And so for instance, electrical used to be division 16, and now these are the most current. Divisions are describe again that they isolate areas of or disciplines of work, and within them is sections of specifications that are intended to describe work results. They aren't intended to scope the project. And by that, I mean associate which contractor is responsible for which. So the electrical contractor isn't by default, or that everybody says, obviously, look, it says it, that they are responsible for the division 26. That's probably correct, but the procurement that's provided by, for instance, a construction manager or a general contractor describes in a section, usually in their appendices, a scope of work. And that scope of work usually references these division numbers to split up the work, but it's based on how they're going to give the project to procure the project. Maybe the owner team wants to or has particular vendors, or they themselves are going to perform work. So it doesn't make for every project being given or issued the same. So there are scopes of work documents that are usually within the appendices of the bid event. Before we pause to hear questions, it looks like we got a little while, okay. So this is a little bit deeper into the specifications and specific to the divisions that we are most interested in. The one of the electrics, division 26 and 27 and 28. Just all over here, that's electrical, the communications and electronics and safety and security, which is mostly where telecommunications or RCDD and PEs design within, which is quite a bit, even though it seems like it's only 3. But I pulled these 3 snips from one of the ebooks as well that just show, because I think it's important. Specifically, this division 26 I pulled from the Practicing One Lines ebook. And it is because it seems very much like, if I'm drawing a one lines, what do I care about the specs? Like, seems you're tricking me into talking to something I don't want to talk about. Everybody believes that the specs, they aren't useful or nobody pays attention to them, but they're very useful, and it's kind of a misnomer. The installer maybe they're negligent about what is the requirements of the spec, but they really are what is the contract document, the requirements. So if somebody starts holding requirements true, these are the things that speak the loudest. So when you're drawing a one line, check out the categories here. The high level, we said division 26 is electrical. So that's easy, kind of ignore that now. And then there's 0, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Okay, and why I'm still haven't said why I'm talking about specs, but I said though that the specs describe the work results. So we'll see here, let's put a one line in front of us so that we can just have something. See this one line here. So as you become less shy about looking at specs, even you'll be smarter about how to draw a one line, because you'll say, oh, this project has, in this case, a secondary unit substation. Well, that's one spec I need. This has a panel board. Okay, there's another spec I need. Well, there's wire and there's conduit. You should be able to look at your one line and look at your spec list and understand the work result. It is in black and white. And if for whatever reason you have something that's in one or in the other and not coordinated, you'll get to ask yourself some questions. I gave the example last night about a generator. If there's no generator in the drawings, but there's a generator spec and the contractor didn't notice, they owe the project a generator, whether they're bidded in their bid or not. Specs are important. But so this is really helpful for the sake of seeing the project, and because this is the whole project. You can't look outside of the specs and see something else. The drawings do a good job pictorially, but if you're trying to see the entire picture, look at the specs, because it's all should be there. Sometimes we do our best and it's got to be kind of meshed in there, something new we haven't done before or edited spec, but it's all there. The switchboards, everything's in there. Likewise, in the division 27, try and do this with all the specs. Try not to get too in the weeds. If I showed you all the numbers for each one of these, maybe it seems a little hazed over. First, just drop the 27, then see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Say, okay, these are big categories. Okay, and then there's lots of work results that happen within these categories. So becoming familiar with the specs is just like one of the best things you can do for yourself. Orchestrating legible documents. So this is just again another snip from our notes from the previous session, showing architectural drawings and mechanical drawings and electrical drawings, and there's a hope that they all kind of a similar scheme of where they are, so that I mentioned the idea of trying to avoid perfect projects that don't get built. They just in design never had to be tested. You know, they never had to, the contractor never they never had to have somebody use their judgment about what was the design intent. There's a lot of miscommunication potentially in what was put on the paper, or even there may not be products that are obtained. You can't find a product such as maybe a UPS at 800 kVA could be possible to get a 4-wire, so to have a neutral and the 3 phases on the output. But maybe at 1200 kVA, no. So it's making sure we issue things that are constructible and aren't perfect projects. So to do that, when we do this, when we orchestrate legible documents, the contractors feel safer that they are not taking a big risk. And then it's such a difference if you've been on projects that happen one way versus the other, because you can feel the contention and everybody just relying on what they wrote in an email or in a meeting minutes. If it comes up, I wrote it down, I don't know. And it's versus the projects where people are just understand and know the true value of orchestrating legible documents. And to do that requires a lot of coordination and finding the best ways and efficient ways to work with each other, because there's only so much time in a project before the next project. Okay, drawings. So this group, I think, might have more exposure to drawings than what would have been the last night's group, but we'll still kind of have a general. Drawings being this one, of course, just this one's from a mentorship program that we had built a house on a property. And so this kind of demonstrates symbols on a sheet. And so this aspect being the drawings themselves. So I'm going to